Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world where money seems to be the center of everything. From the moment we wake up until we go to sleep, we are surrounded by the idea that happiness is tied to wealth. A bigger house, a newer car, or a luxurious lifestyle. But the question remains, can money truly buy happiness? Buddhism teaches us that while money can bring comfort, it can never bring lasting peace. Money can buy pleasure, but pleasure fades. It can buy attention, but not love. It can buy security, but not contentment, in the pursuit of wealth. People often forget that happiness is not something that can be purchased. It is something that must be discovered within. The Buddha taught that craving is the root of suffering. When our mind constantly wants more possessions, more recognition, more control, we become trapped in an endless cycle of desire. Even when we achieve what we want, satisfaction slips away, and a new desire arises. This is why many people with great fortunes still feel an emptiness inside. True happiness does not come from what we have, but from what we are. When our mind is calm, when our heart is kind, when our actions are guided by compassion and mindfulness, we begin to experience a peace that no amount of money can replace. A person with little, but a grateful heart sleeps peacefully, while one with millions, but constant worry cannot rest. Money is a tool, useful, yes, but it should serve us, not control us. When we use it wisely, it can support our family, help those in need, and create opportunities for good. But when we chase it blindly, it becomes our master. The moment we measure our worth by the numbers in our bank account, we lose touch with the true purpose of life. To grow in wisdom, kindness, and inner freedom. So, can money buy happiness? It can buy things that make life easier, but never the peace that makes life beautiful. Happiness blooms not in the mind that wants, but in the mind that is content. When we understand this, we begin to live not just a rich life, but a meaningful one. Money brings comfort, not peace. It has the power to provide food, shelter, safety, and access to the best opportunities in life. It can ease physical hardships and create an environment where our basic needs are met. But despite all these benefits, money can never buy the deep sense of peace that every human heart longs for. Comfort and peace are two entirely different things. Comfort can be purchased, but peace is something that arises from within. When a person depends only on material wealth for happiness, they experience a temporary satisfaction that quickly fades away once the novelty wears off. The new car, the bigger house, or the luxurious vacation might bring a moment of joy, but that joy doesn't last. The mind soon begins to crave more, searching for the next thing to fill the emptiness inside. Peace, on the other hand, cannot be found in external possessions. It is born from understanding compassion and inner balance. When the mind is calm and free from greed, jealousy, and fear, it naturally becomes peaceful. Buddhism teaches that attachment to material things is one of the greatest causes of suffering. The more we cling to wealth and possessions, the more anxiety we create. The fear of losing them, the pressure to maintain them, and the desire to gain even more. True peace comes only when we loosen our attachment to things and focus instead on inner growth and awareness. Money can make you comfortable on the outside, but not content on the inside. You can sleep on the softest bed and still have sleepless nights if your mind is filled with worries. You can eat the finest food and still feel empty if your heart is full of dissatisfaction. Peace cannot be purchased because it is not a product, it is a state of being. It comes when we stop searching for happiness in things and start discovering it within ourselves. A person with less money, but a peaceful mind is richer than one who owns everything yet feels restless. Comfort fades when circumstances change, but peace remains constant when it grows from mindfulness and understanding. That is why money can only provide a temporary sense of relief, not the deep and lasting peace that every soul truly seeks. Desire leads to suffering, because the more we want, the more we become trapped in an endless cycle of craving and disappointment. According to Buddhist teachings, this craving, known as tanha, is the root cause of human suffering. When the mind constantly seeks more wealth, recognition, or material pleasure, it can never be at rest. The moment one desire is fulfilled, another takes its place, creating a chain that never ends. This is why people often achieve great success, or accumulate vast amounts of money, and still feel an emptiness inside. The satisfaction they experience is temporary, because it depends on external things that are always changing. The nature of desire is that it feeds itself. When we get what we want, we briefly feel happy, but soon that happiness fades, and the mind begins to chase the next thing. This creates a restless state where peace becomes impossible. Even fear arises. Fear of losing what we already have or not getting what we want next. The Buddha explained that the more we attach our happiness to possessions or outcomes, the more pain we invite into our lives. Because everything in this world is impermanent, the things we cling to eventually change, fade, or disappear. When they do, suffering follows. In the modern world, advertisements, social media, and competition constantly fuel desire. We are told that happiness lies in owning more, a better phone, a bigger house, or a perfect life. Yet the truth is, the more we chase these illusions, the farther we drift from inner peace. The mind becomes a battlefield of comparisons, jealousy, and insecurity. But when we start to understand the nature of desire, we also begin to see the path to freedom. By practicing mindfulness and contentment, we can observe our desires without being controlled by them. Letting go of constant wanting doesn't mean giving up on life or goals. It means freeing ourselves from the belief that happiness depends on them. When we are no longer slaves to desire, we start to appreciate the present moment, the simple joys, and the peace that already exists within us. True happiness is not in satisfying every craving, but in realizing we don't need much to feel complete. True happiness comes from within, not from what we own or how much wealth we accumulate. It is a state of mind, a peaceful feeling that arises when we are content, grateful, and aware of the present moment. Many people believe that happiness is something to be achieved once they reach a certain goal or acquire certain things. But Buddhism teaches that this kind of happiness is temporary and dependent on conditions that constantly change. Real happiness doesn't depend on circumstances. It grows from within, from how we think, how we feel, and how we live our lives with compassion and mindfulness. When we rely on external things for joy, we make our peace fragile. If the things we depend on disappear, our happiness disappears with them. But when happiness is born from within, it remains unshaken even in difficult times. A person who has trained their mind to stay calm and grateful can find peace even in simplicity. They don't need luxury or applause to feel complete, because their joy comes from understanding life as it is. Gratitude plays a major role in this inner happiness. When we stop focusing on what we lack and start appreciating what we have, our hearts open up and we begin to experience peace. Mindfulness is another key to inner happiness. When the mind is fully present, not lost in the past or worrying about the future, it becomes still and clear. In that stillness, joy naturally arises. Even small things, like a quiet morning or a kind smile, can bring deep satisfaction. Compassion also contributes to lasting happiness. When we act with kindness and help others, we feel connected and fulfilled. That feeling of connection cannot be bought with money. It comes only from the heart. The mistake most people make is believing that happiness is something to be chased outside themselves. They keep running after wealth, relationships, or success, thinking that one day they will finally feel whole. But the more they chase, the farther happiness seems to move away. When we turn inward, silence the noise of desire, and nurture kindness, we discover that happiness was never missing. It was always within us, waiting to be recognized. Wealth without wisdom creates emptiness, because material possessions alone cannot fill the inner void that exists in the human heart. Many people spend their entire lives chasing money, thinking it will solve all their problems. But when they finally achieve success, they often find that something is still missing. They may have comfort, luxury, and recognition, yet deep inside, there is a feeling of restlessness and dissatisfaction. This happens because without wisdom and spiritual understanding, wealth becomes meaningless. Wisdom teaches us how to use money, how to live peacefully, and how to find true joy beyond material gain. Without it, even great fortune becomes a burden rather than a blessing. In Buddhism, wisdom is the light that guides the mind toward truth and balance. It helps us see that everything in this world is temporary. Money, status, and possessions will all fade away one day. When a person realizes this truth, they begin to live differently. They no longer depend on external things to define their happiness. Instead, they use their wealth in meaningful ways, such as helping others, supporting good causes, and creating harmony in life. A wise person understands that money can buy comfort, but never inner fulfillment. People without wisdom often fall into the trap of comparison and greed. They constantly measure their success by what others have, which only increases anxiety and discontent. Even with plenty, they feel poor because their heart lacks peace. True wealth is not about what is stored in the bank, but about what is cultivated in the mind. A kind heart, a peaceful soul, and a clear conscience are the greatest treasures one can possess. When wisdom guides our choices, we learn to live simply and joyfully, regardless of how much money we have. A wise person uses wealth as a tool to bring happiness to others and peace to themselves. They understand that generosity creates joy, while selfishness leads to loneliness. Wisdom transforms money from a source of stress into a means of service. When we combine wealth with understanding, it brings peace and purpose. But when we separate wealth from wisdom, life may look full from the outside yet remain empty within. Use money as a tool, not a master, because when money starts to control our thoughts, actions, and values, we lose the true purpose of life. Money is meant to serve us, to make living easier, to provide comfort, and to help us contribute positively to the world. But when we become obsessed with earning, saving, or showing off wealth, money becomes our master, and we become its slaves. This attachment leads to endless worry, fear of loss, and a constant sense of dissatisfaction. Buddhism teaches balance, to live with awareness, neither rejecting money nor being controlled by it. The key is to use money mindfully, with understanding and compassion. When money is used as a tool, it can do great good. It can feed the hungry, educate the poor, and bring light where there is darkness. It can support families, communities, and the growth of kindness. In this way, wealth becomes meaningful, and every act of generosity multiplies happiness. But when money becomes our master, it brings greed, selfishness, and separation. People start to value things more than relationships, profit more than peace, and status more than sincerity. This mindset causes deep unhappiness because no amount of money can replace love, trust, or inner calm. Using money wisely means understanding its impermanent nature. What we have today may not remain tomorrow, and clinging to it only creates suffering. Instead of being consumed by the desire to earn more, we can learn to manage what we have with gratitude and purpose. When we spend with awareness, we bring happiness not just to ourselves, but to others. Generosity purifies the mind and breaks the chains of attachment. Money is powerful, but it should never define who we are. A person's worth is not measured by possessions, but by their character, kindness, and peace of mind. When we use money as a servant, it becomes a source of good energy. When we let it rule over us, it becomes a cause of misery. The wise person understands this balance, earning with honesty, spending with purpose, and giving with an open heart. In doing so, money fulfills its rightful role as a tool for good, not a master of the soul. Contentment is the greatest wealth, because it creates peace in the heart that no amount of money can buy. A content person is not poor, even if they have little, because they have discovered the secret of inner fulfillment. In contrast, a person who constantly desires more can never feel truly rich, no matter how much they possess. Buddhism teaches that contentment is not about having everything, but about being grateful for what we already have. It is the quiet joy of knowing that this moment, this life, and what we have right now are enough. When the mind stops chasing what is missing, it begins to appreciate what is present, and that is where true happiness begins. Discontentment comes from the illusion that something outside of us will complete us. A new possession, a different situation, or more recognition. But each time we achieve what we wanted, the satisfaction fades and a new desire takes its place. This constant cycle of wanting and acquiring leaves the heart restless and exhausted. Contentment breaks that cycle. It brings stillness to the mind and allows us to experience peace without depending on changing circumstances. It teaches us to find joy in simplicity, in the beauty of nature, in meaningful relationships, and in moments of silence. When we practice gratitude, we nurture contentment. Gratitude opens the eyes to blessings we often take for granted. Our health, our family, the food we eat, and even the breath we take. Instead of focusing on what is lacking, gratitude helps us see how much we already have. This shift in perspective creates a deep sense of abundance that no material wealth can equal. Contentment also frees us from comparison. In a world that constantly tells us to want more, to compete, and to prove our worth through possessions, being content becomes a quiet act of wisdom. It means understanding that happiness is not in things, but in peace of mind. A person who is content lives lightly, without the burden of endless desire. They can enjoy what they have, share generously with others, and walk through life with serenity. In this way, contentment becomes the richest form of wealth, one that can never be lost, stolen, or diminished. Thanks for watching.